Hey, Genius Leaders, welcome to the solo episode of the show. Just wanted to mention that last week, when this episode airs, and it is last week or the week before, that we have hit 10K downloads. I almost said 10 million, but 10,000 downloads for this show. And I'm eternally grateful for that. So, to every one of you listening, tuning in, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's a lot of work. A lot of people don't realize how much podcast is actually. Demanding from us, the host and the team behind us. But it's my work of love, and I pour a lot of heart of mine into that, and a lot of resources, a lot of my capacities into it, and I always am grateful to see that some episodes resonate. To hear from you, it doesn't happen that often, but every time it's just worth the gold to me when you write back to me and say that some episode has resonated, it came right at at the right time, or my questions to the guest really help them understand themselves better, and they ask themselves these questions and get closer to their core and to that happiness in life. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being a part of the Genius Leadership community, contributing to it with listening, with sharing the episodes, with learning from that, implementing in your lives, because that's the most important part for me. And not always I know about it, but sometimes I get to know about it afterwards, or when you write to me in the process, and it's all fantastic. So hooray to the 10,000 downloads and some streams. I don't track those numbers. It's harder to track them, but I I just really am geared for the next 10K and getting to those millions, as I almost slipped saying with the 10 million. So let's keep this journey going. Let's keep developing together. Let's keep elevating each other and help each other to grow in a sustainable way, in a way that brings us more happiness while we keep creating that impact in the world. And speaking of impact, today's topic might be a bit challenging for someone to listen, but if you get triggered, sit with it. Don't completely disregard this episode. Maybe come back to it later on if you feel too irritated right now and you can't listen to me. Please come back to this episode because I do believe that it can actually change a lot for you. And this episode will be about you reading too much. And let's just directly clarify what I mean. We're talking about nonfiction, so self-help books, personal development, leadership development, business development, those kind of books. And when I'm saying books, I will mean paper books, electronic books, audiobooks, and even educational podcasts. So all that, I'll just bunch it together today as the books, and we'll talk about that. And my message is about that you're consuming too much. If you have been listening to the show, you know that I usually say that the most impactful book in my life has been The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And it's not because it's the best book in the world or anything like this. For me, it's because I actually took my time to read it and implement the stuff from the book itself. And that's where I see a lot of people changing or challenged nowadays. There is so much information out there. There is so much knowledge. It's never been easier to keep educating yourself and leveling up yourself with the knowledge 24/7, as it is right now. And that creates a lot of pressure for people. People feel FOMO when they hear about some book and they haven't read it, and they don't know some like what it is about or haven't read the whole book. And they just keep reading, keep reading, keep reading, keep reading, keep having more knowledge. But the problem, it creates a lot of problems. So let's unpack them. First one that I see is that we're already busy, right? There is so much going on. You're probably building something, whether it's career, whether corporate or academia. I know there are some of you listening who are in academia now, or you're building your own business, then you're responsible for the livelihood of all your employees and their families. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot to really always keep on top of your mind and keep moving forward. And at the same time, you probably want to be healthy, you want to be happy, you want to contribute to your family, your friendship circle, and so on and so forth. It's a lot to take in. And at the same time, what do? You take in a lot of knowledge. And the problem is that then you know more, but when you don't take that time to implement and integrate that knowledge into your life, you start feeling bad about yourself. You start beating yourself up in a way of saying, how hard can it be? I know all this shit. Why don't I do it? How, look, I know how to do it. And like, I shouldn't be listening to Anna right now. She's not saying anything new to me. It's all common knowledge. Why don't I do it? Why is it so hard for me? Why do I fall off the track all the time? Why can't I prioritize myself and my development? I've read about this in all these books about the atomic habits or tiny steps and stuff like that. So we start beating ourselves up because we have all this knowledge, but we don't implement it. And it's not only not helpful, as in like, okay, that knowledge doesn't really bring us anything positive. It actually brings a lot of negative stuff because we break down our confidence. We really start building some negative stories about ourselves, and that starts creating ripple effects in a bad way in how we show up, in how we believe what we can do or we can't do, what we choose to do in our lives, and so on and so forth. So this is why that Seven Habit book was the most impactful one in my life. It it was a perfect storm of things in the same happening at the same time. I started working, or like I was a couple of years into the work time. The war started back in Ukraine, so it was a very challenging time to really focus on the things that I can affect and not, and letting go of those that I cannot affect. It was I was growing in my relationship, my romantic relationship with my husband. There was a lot of things that were going on at the same time. And then there were I was recommended by a couch surfer who stayed with us actually to read the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And I bought that book and I started reading it and I realized like, okay, this can be life changing. The principles that Mr. Covey was laying out there, they really can make a huge difference for me. But I do need to implement them. I can't just read them. It takes a lot of work to actually bring that knowledge to life in my own experience. So I committed to reading only one chapter at a time about one habit and making sure that I integrate that. So I would do all the exercises. I would write down if he had any questions or exercises to do. Then I would reflect on having done them on paper, and I would really force myself to not read the next chapter until I felt like this habit has been integrated in my life. And it worked perfectly because they kind of built upon each other. And I was super curious about the next chapters, the next habits. I just knew the titles of them and how they related to each other. So that pushed me to work on the implementation. But it took me 2.5 years to really get through the book because some habits took me 6 to 8 months to feel like, yeah, I'm fairly okay with that right now. And of course, it's a journey. Every time I reread or listen to the book right now, there are new things. Of course, I'm getting to a new depth, to a new level, and there is more to do there. It's a never-ending journey, but I really wanted to feel like, okay, I live by these principles to the best of my abilities right now, and only then I would allow myself to go to the next chapter. And those 2.5 years have really changed a lot for me, and I'm still, harvesting the effects of that, the results of that work. And that's partially what brought me to be in a mind shifter, to working with my clients, to be so good at providing a safe space for them to level up and explore and so on and so forth. So this is not to say that the Seven Habits is the book that you all should read after listening to this episode, but I want to encourage you to slow down and take one book, whether it's something you are reading right now, or it's something that you, for example, bought but you've never read so far, or maybe some book that you have read before and you felt like so much resonates, it would be so good to implement this, to live by this, to run a business by this book, and so on and so forth, but you never actually took the time and the energy it involves to actually do the work. So pick a book and start reading it very slowly, very intentionally, bit by bit. And I wanted to kind of think of Bible. I know that a lot of you are from the Western world, so I assume that you're more aware about Christianity than other religions, whether you are atheist or not. But if you know people who are believers and who actually refer to Bible, it's not a book that you just devour all the time, like in one go. You open, you read one verse, you close the book, you digest it, and that is the habit that I want you to start building up for yourself. Read whatever book you pick next as a Bible. Open it, read one bit of it, one chapter or even one page. Depends on how heavy it is, how much it triggers the thought processes for you, and then close the book. Force yourself to close it, and of course you can continue reading something else. So maybe pick a fiction book to really continue consuming in between those implementation time, but really put the time for yourself to work on the things from the book. And then when you feel like, okay, yes, this bit has resonated with me, what I suggest, that's how I did it with the 7 habits. When I felt like I was at home, so to say, with the current habit, I would reread that chapter. I would go back to the exercises, feel like, okay, is that really the truth for me? And sometimes I actually had to pause myself before going to the next chapter and feel that, no, actually, this I'm still not fine with. So I need to keep working on this chapter. So try to do that as well for yourself. Reread the bit that you read before, maybe scan it through diagonally. You don't need to go, like word by word, but just reflect for yourself. Is that part of my identity right now? Or have I given it an honest try? So I'm not saying that whatever book you read, you really need to follow it by the T and really be super diligent on implementing those things if they don't resonate with you or if they don't fit your situation right now and so on. But give them an honest try. Reflect on it. Maybe try to experiment and twist and turn things to really fit your situation, your scenario, your life stage right now. But that experience will really enrich in you much more than just devouring book after book after book after book after book, getting +1 title to your list of the read list for this year every week, and so on and so forth. So this is one of the things that I wanted to think about, that more knowledge doesn't mean more happiness necessarily. I like how I've heard from Brent Bouchard, I don't know whether it's his phrase, but common practice that, or common sense doesn't mean common practice. So we can know a lot of things, but not necessarily we live by those. And this is something that I sometimes joke with my clients. When they jokingly say, "Do I really pay you to tell me these things?" They're just so basic, but like, what's going on? Why am I paying you to hear these things? And I say, you don't pay me to hear these things. Of course you know them. I'm not discovering America for you, but do you do them? No. And that's what you paid me for, to actually get those things into your daily basis of habits, of way of thinking, of way of treating yourself, and so on and so forth. So this is something that I really want you to get out of this episode. Get a book and start practicing it, reading it like a Bible, digesting it, implementing it bit by bit. Maybe create a reading club for yourself, a bit of a book club, and invite a couple of friends to do it together. It's always much more fun that way. And then you can support each other on the implementation part as well, and accountability. And another point I want to emphasize here or point out is that when we really devour the knowledge of the others, we forget about the knowledge of our own wisdom. And this is something that I also see a lot and honestly, I've been there so many times myself. When I have consumed a lot of material, and for me in the recent years, it has been more in the podcast format, when I know so much about how you should do it that I forget to really tune into my wisdom, my gut feeling, uh, get back to my core, be aligned with that on how I do things. That has been hurting me a lot in the last couple of years, especially with building the business. I started hiring help right away from day one of my business, way before I started earning money and taking in paying clients before I officially launched the business. And I think it's good. It's very important. I talk a lot about that. We need support, but at the same time, we need support that will help us guide to ourselves, not the support that will just give us the blueprint that does not suit us at all. I remember that I had a very clear situation in one of the accelerators that I was going through. It was a 1-year program for online businesses where my coach or my mentor, so they had a group of support mentors or coaches. She was forcing me go into Facebook and grow my business on Facebook, and I hate Facebook really. I haven't been there active. If I wouldn't be living in Iceland, I would have removed it years ago. But here, everything happening it happens through Facebook, so I do need to stay on the platform. I feel, but at the same time, I barely go there, so I still do things. And she was really like, okay, there are people there, and you can grow your stuff, you can run ads and whatever, whatever. And I had a lot of resistance to that. I tried it and it was draining me. And at some point, I just decided, no, LinkedIn is the platform that I thrive more on. I enjoy being present there more, contributing there more, and that is much more sustainable. And I wish I would have this resistance and push back on other things that people have been providing for me. And let's just say like okay, it's the well-meant support and well-meant suggestions, and they're not coming out of the intention of hurting me, but at the same time when I follow that, and it can be the best meaning from them, but if it's not what aligns to me, then it hurts me in the end of the day, at the end of the day. And it's so important to keep that perspective when we consume the knowledge, when we read the books, listen to podcasts. How does it fit into my life? Not to say that to stay in the comfort zone of yours all the time, but whenever you're experimenting with implementing and integrating the learnings from the book, uh, going back to all these questions, where is the true me in this? How does that contribute to my real, true fulfillment in life? How does it help me to reach my purpose? How does it help me to create the impact that I do want to create? How does it help me to be happy in my way, not in the societal, by the societal standards, and so on and so forth? So it's a lot of work to read a book in this way. It is. I'm not saying that I'm not going to oversimplify those things, but I do want to bring this perspective to you. If you have been stressed recently by all the knowledge you have that you don't really implement, all the things you know how you should be doing, but you're not doing them. Let let's strip that all away and start again. Start all over. Go back to the basics and reflect on what would be one skill or one mind shift that would really move the needle forward for you for the rest of the year. So we're approaching Q4 of this year, and maybe set that as an experiment for yourself. Which one book can I be reading for the last quarter of this year and implementing and integrating, experimenting with it in a way that would be the most life-changing for me at this stage of my life, in this context, in this situation where I find myself. And maybe it is something about the personal development, it could be about your habits. Maybe it is something about your health. Maybe you need to want to educate yourself about some specific condition that you might be having, or a specific aspect of well-being and mental health or physical health that you want to practice improving on. Maybe it is something about the business. Maybe it is about the hard skills that you have. Really decide about one thing. And I know it might be difficult. And I know you might feel FOMO and you might feel this kind of heavy stone feeling in your stomach hearing that. But I guarantee that if you do that, it will truly change your life. Much more than 50 books will do in the remaining quarter. So I want to keep this short. I think I've said enough about this. I hope I inspired you to think about your consumption of books and podcasts in a different way. And I hope that you are inspired to take one book and turn it into your personal Bible for the quarter four of this year. And if you've ever experienced that before, a book that you've really lived through and implemented and integrated into your life, please let me know. I would love to know about that. I would love to know which book it was and how it changed for you, how long it took you, what kind of resistance did you have, etc. Or if you decide about a book for the Q4, let me know as well. Let me be your accountability buddy there and check in with you later on this year to see how it's going for you. How are you implementing that book? And let me know why you chose that book. I would be very interested to know that. For me personally, I'm actually slowing down on reading for the Q4. I feel like I will go much more into introspective. I've been doing it already since the summer with a lot of work that I have done to uh, understand myself from a different perspective, from a deeper level, really getting back to myself after all the consumption of knowledge that really took me away from my core. So I'm now a bit of a mesh state of being in the cocoon, um, which feels a bit messy, which feels a bit ugly, but I know that I'll get out of that cocoon being a bit of a more beautiful creature of a butterfly. Um, so that's my goal. I'm not reading books that way. I'm actually just doubling down on the fiction for autumn, and that also brings me personal insights. Actually, when I listen to fiction books in different genres. So that's my goal for now, and I would love to know about yours. Let me know how it goes, and maybe if some two of you write about similar goal or even the same book, then maybe with your both permissions, I'll connect you two. Maybe you can create your own micro book club for the rest of the year for that book, and I'm very curious to see where that would lead us. So just to wrap up, I want to remind you that I see you, I feel you, and I love you. And I do know that you have all that knowledge within yourself that can help you be happy, be fulfilled, feel like you're creating the impact in the world that you're meant to create. So slow down, pick maximum one book for the rest of the year to be your Bible, or maybe let your journal become your Bible for the rest of the year and keep going. Keep getting closer to that best version, the most aligned version of you that is really staying true to your own core. That's where fulfillment and happiness really truly lies. So I deeply rooting for you on that process. And if you need any help, please reach out. Take care and talk to you next week.